Good morning, Quasar Markets Live. You've got your main man, Hondo Greenberg, here to take you through the morning session. Steve is still in New York at the UN speaking and an AI conference at Fordham, a few other things. So we are running solo here this morning. I do have up on the screen this morning. We got a pretty good schedule of things going on today. I'm very excited. Our first time, this morning you have me here from 9 to 10. We're going to go over everything I'm seeing in the markets, take a look. I got a long list of movers so far today. We'll be back at 12. Very excited to add this segment we'll be doing on Monday and Wednesdays with Agnieszka Wood from Ahead Coaching. She is amazing. And she does she's going to go over a little bit of her background today and how she approaches trading from a mindset as opposed to from the psychological side, and how to sort of get yourself set for your trading day, how to get yourself just set up in general for life. So very excited to have her as a regular contributor here on Quasar Markets. We'll also do a quick midday market update there, let you know what's moving one way or the other here. And then at 1 o'clock, so excited to have Scott Bauer, the legend. The man is the CEO of Prosper Trading Academy, a 30-year veteran of the trading pits on the CBOE when he worked for Goldman Sachs and others. He actually will bring us his daily market minds at 1 p.m. Monday through Fridays here on Quasar Markets, live from the floor of the CBOE in Chicago. So extremely excited to have that. And then today I will be back at 2 o'clock for my Crypto Corner, a quick 20 to 30 minute look at what's going on in the world of cryptocurrencies. For those that don't know, I am also the president of the American Blockchain and Cryptocurrency Association with a long background in that field. So we'll be doing that today. So very excited for all of that. I now need to figure out where I can pull. There we go. Okay. Let's get into it. Let's start right off with what we're seeing here across the SPY, QQQ, Dow Jones, etc. We are seeing a muted start so far this morning. Almost even, down about 0.05 on the S&P 500. The NASDAQ is down a little bit more, but we're not seeing a huge amount of movement so far this morning. It will be interesting to keep an eye on volume, as Scott Bauer pointed out yesterday on his Market Minds. Volume has been really, really low. He did his show yesterday from basically the S&P trading pit, and it was quiet. We had a couple little cheers here and there, but otherwise not a lot of action. So it seems like there's still a lot of money sitting on the sidelines. And we're going to go through that this morning. I have a few good articles to bring up, a few good things to go over. First thing we got to talk about is China's, PBOC, the People's Bank of China, back at it again today. They have announced that they cut their interest rate on the 1-year medium-term lending facility to 2% from 2.3. They had hinted at that yesterday, but today they came out with the official announcement. They also released about 300 billion yuan into financial institutions to be, allow them to have a little more liquidity when they are looking to give out loans. And then lastly, they also freed up about $1 trillion in yuan by lowering reserve level requirements at their banks and lending facilities. So they have done it. What I will bring up there is it has not moved the needle today like we saw yesterday. So yesterday we know some of the big winners were the Chinese names, whether it be Alibaba, saw almost an 8% increase, has pulled back about 3% here in the morning hour. Baidu, same type of thing, 7.4% up yesterday, down about 3.22% here this morning. JD, similar, up almost 14% yesterday, down 4.2 in early morning trading hours here. We also know that affects stocks like Tesla.
And we are seeing a little drop here, about 0.72 on Tesla. We do have a bunch of different news points on Tesla we will bring up today. So we are seeing a little bit more weakness here. I think part of it is, quite honestly, like I said, their bank chairman had sort of announced what was coming today, but then they made the official announcements today. Whereas though the Shanghai Composite so far is up about 1.2% today, and the CSI 300 is up about 1.5%. That's a combination of stocks from Beijing and Shanghai. So, we are seeing it not have quite the effect here in the U.S. that we've seen. It had moved, when we look at the DXY or the dollar, what we had seen is the dollar is dropping a little bit in value here over the last 24 hours, now down about 100.326. And what we see is that those moves did move the Chinese yuan to a 16-month high, and it broke what's considered a key psychological number at 7 yuan versus $1 for the first time since last May. So we are seeing a little bit of a boost for them there. We'll be keeping our eyes out for that. Here in the U.S., we haven't seen as much of that. One of the things, like I just said, we got to talk about the dollar is, the weakening dollar, actually helps the economy in a couple of different ways that we do want to keep in mind. As the dollar goes down again, and we can see it's been in a fairly steady downward move here since September 12th. So we've seen about 15 days, and if we extend out, if I blow up, actually make it a little easier to look. Whoops, wrong thing. If I blow up our daily chart, the DXY, we really see that we've been in this downward swing, since June, late June is when we really, saw this move down. And we can track, right now. It's dropped about 5.78%, 5.45, percent in that time. So that's a pretty big drop when it comes to that. But what does that help? It will help foreign buyers, so the exchange of the dollar is a key factor when it comes to trade. So we'll see, do we start to see that, higher interest rates cause the currency to rise, because they make investments in that currency more attractive. And the flip side of that we're seeing now, as we lower rates, those, the dollar becomes less attractive. And again, we talked a lot here about that yen carry trade. So with that really not being in play right now, we're seeing this drop out. So definitely a thing to keep an eye on. Some other things we were looking at this morning is a drop here. Whoops, I hate when I do that. Wrong chart. Let me put back that so it's here when we need it later. Let me go from that. Let me get to that. And now let me try that again. So key commodities that we look at here, obviously in the morning, Bitcoin, one of the first ones, still above that 63K, actually above 63.5. So really nicely, hasn't made that move back here. And what we've seen, again, if I blow up the daily chart, what I'm liking to see so far, right, higher lows every day. Higher lows across the board here. So we're seeing higher lows, higher highs, not necessarily the last couple of days, more of a flattening out, but we're still keeping up to where we should be and doing its job. As we look at gold, gold has been on fire again, another day, another all-time high on gold. So we continue to see a movement there into the gold market, and you can see this move up it's had. I mean, it's been pretty much a straight shot up since the end of June, from that 2300 level up to 2665. And that 2600 level, it had trouble getting across it here for a few days. It had been a big psychological spot, but now that we got through it, it just continues to run. We've got gold here. Gold broke through that downward top channel we had been looking at. We spoke about that with Steve. Steve did mention that he did take a little bit of profits on his silver. He still holds his estimates of 50 here by end year, or in the next 12 months, excuse me, but we're not there yet. Oil is holding up pretty well here, actually moving up a little bit yesterday into that 70 level, so it was good to see that. And what we're seeing, across oils here is WTI, moved up nicely yesterday. We're having a pullback here so far this morning, but it booked strong gains Tuesday after the PBOC's announcement. Gave some indication that maybe we won't see the issues in the Chinese economy, the cracks, to break into a full-fledged recession. I do think it does, actually, so I'm still leaning towards that being the case there and making my decisions based upon that as opposed to the others. Middle East tensions are definitely at a high here, so that is going to keep crude and oil moving up. So we're seeing that. You probably start to see it at the pump sooner than later. We were down about 65 mid last week, and now we're firmly above the 70 handle here on those. Did notice the VIX is getting a little bit of a rise here. Did gap up this morning, so a little bit more volatility coming into play so far. When it comes to treasuries, we always keep an eye on that. We saw that benchmark borrowing rates climbed yesterday. It's a little bit of a head scratcher for some people because Powell cut 50 basis points, but what we got to understand is it takes a little while for this to work through the markets. It's interesting. I'm seeing conflicting talk about what's happening in the money markets. Is money going in? Is money coming out? On CNBC this morning, I saw an analyst from Goldman Sachs who said that they're seeing people still extend duration like we talked about. We talked about that last week. They did mention we're getting to the end of the ability to do that. So, that lag that it takes here for rates to sort of catch up to what the Fed did, it might be starting to move. And what she pointed out from Goldman Sachs was that we're seeing it play out very similar to the rate cuts in 2020, where we first see a move, and they saw about 127 billion move into money markets. We have seen some talks from individual funds that are seeing movement out of money markets, but what we're seeing is they're still staying in fixed income a little bit, and they're doing that by moving a little bit into corporate bonds. So I did a little bit more research and got a little bit more information here that we'll look at today. When it comes to where would you maybe now look to put that dollars with, where would get yield play here now that we start to see it. So bonds being a place to take a look, with more, as the Fed has cut its interest rates by that aggressive and more reductions are on the way, we could continue to see, bonds continue to pick up. Traders are currently pricing in close to a 60-40 chance the Fed will lower rates by another half point in November 7th. And again, we know we find that, or we see that in our Fed Watch. Give me 1 second. I'll pull that up for us here. And as we look, the Fed Watch here, we got about a 62% of another 50 basis point move being priced in for November. So, as the Fed speakers are out there and talking, what I'm sort of seeing is the takeaway is more and more of them that are making it clear that they were comfortable with the half-point move that they made, that this wasn't sort of forced upon them, and that they're comfortable if they have to do that again with doing it. So, that's something to keep in mind. And what we're seeing again also is if we look at December, we're seeing a move now that, again, more people looking at that, target rate to be at 4 to 4.25 as we get into there. But more bets being made on that 375 than were before. So, right now we're looking at being at 425 to 450 after the November, rates come out after the FOMC. And then again in December, you're starting to see 48% to that and 35. So again, there. So what should we do? What can you do if you're now looking and you can't get that 5% interest rates out of, short-term lending or short-term bonds or short-term money markets? I shouldn't have said bonds. What can you kind of take a look at? I actually brought a few of them up here on my sheet. A couple of ones you could look at here are SHY, which, as you can see, is the iShare 1 to 3 year Treasury bonds. So this tracks Treasury bonds. ETFs, to me, are going to be your easiest way to play these. And that's one you could take a look at. You have IEI, which is the iShares 3 to 7 year Treasury bond. And another good one is always TLT, which is the 20-year Treasury bond ETF. So you can use those. A couple other ones that I found out there that are in the same sort of business. You can look at Vanguard. Vanguard has the short-term corporate bond ETF, VCSH, and then VCLT, which is Vanguard's long-term corporate bond. So for those of you that are saying, I've had a nice run of keeping some keep some money in that area and go. So now let's take a look at a couple before we get into the big names out there. We have been tracking the last few days some of these quick micro pumpers. Yesterday we hit it big, with BNZI. BNZI was one that we were tracking yesterday. And, we called that out in the 765 area, said to watch it for a run to 9 or 10. Actually made it all the way up to 1120 yesterday before retreating. So what are we looking at today here? A couple that I'm looking at personally. OCTO, 8 company holdings. This is one that looks like it might want to make a move. And you can see how that's moved up 63%, but it's seen it move up, continuously. If it gets back above 427 here, one's to watch, without a doubt. Another one that I had on today's list is ATCH. Atlas Clear Holdings, again another one that has moved up, and again I like the way this looks. A break above 4516 could see a run here. So you got a couple micro pumpers that are looking to do something here this morning. Another one brought to me by the legend himself, Charlie Moon, TNON. And you can see how that's trying to make its run here. Trading at 463 currently. If we can get through the MA right there, might have the ability to see a move. So we do have some micro pumpers to keep an eye on here. Again, bringing those up to you before we get the market open. But that is what we're looking at there so far this morning. Okay, as we talk about what are we looking at here this morning at Quasar Markets Live, some things that I've got on the daily checklist here, or what's been going on. Merck is down a little bit here. Now it's actually even in the pre-market, but Merck had been hit here a little bit after finding out that their late-stage trial, Keytruda, for colon cancer failed to meet its main goal of overall survival. So Merck getting hit here today. Another one getting hit in pre-market hours, down about 2.41, is SAP. SAP is a software company that builds SaaS, or software as a service. They're one of the biggest in there, if not the biggest one. They are seeing their stocks drop and slump here after a report that it's a target of a probe into whether or not the German multinational software business was involved in overcharging or price fixing against U.S. government agencies. This was announced or released through Bloomberg, citing documents from a court case that's been filed. We're also seeing that Accenture, mentioned in the report, I did have them on here. They're down about 0.37 on the news. Carasoft was another company that had been brought up in there. So, we're seeing a little bit of a movement there. Again, negative news. We know yesterday's negative news, really, when it came to the government, had to do with Visa, right? It was announced that the Justice Department was filing an antitrust lawsuit. The government will claim that Visa illegally hindered competition by rivals through exclusive agreements, forcing basically credit card processing companies to use their products, or forcing it to happen. We've seen this anti-competitive type of thing is really being heavily attacked at the government level. So we will keep an eye on that. Other ones in the news we talked about yesterday, KB Homes was going into their earnings report. Did not go very well there, as you can see, down. Ended up down yesterday. They reported yesterday afternoon, and after our market it was down, and then this morning down another 4.9% there. So that definitely was one that was taken with, is definitely hurting. And just to give you some information on there, they reported a profit of $157.3 million, or about $2.04 a share, and you can see that right here. A miss of about a percentage point, and then more importantly, they also missed revenue by about 22 million, or about 1.28%. They also lowered the high end of their gross profit margin outlook from 21.2% to 21.5%. The decrease came as the company reported a gross profit margin for the quarter of 20.6%, down from 21.5% in the prior year period. Their chief executive officer, on a call with analysts, attributed the lower margins to a product and geographic mix shift of homes, as well as the effect of pricing adjustments to support demand. We've talked about that. One of the advantages that these home builders do have is that they tend to be under a side business, a partnership, whatever you want to call it, connected to a mortgage company directly. Either they have their own, or they provide their own, or they're partners with one. So they provide a lot of benefits for folks that are trying to get lower rates. We see Ford, GM, and Rivian all got downgrades from analysts, and we're seeing those stocks drop a little bit in regards to that. Morgan Stanley, believes things are going to get tougher for the U.S. auto industry, so they had downgraded shares of General Motors and Ford and Rivian. And we can see so far Ford down about 2.39% on that news. GM getting hit even a little harder, down about 6%, down about 4%, excuse me. GM, we know, had been making some really, really nice moves up. So a little bit of a hit here, and Rivian was down about 3.38% on that news too. So, a few things that were troubling the analyst was that U.S. dealer inventories are rising, tends to put pressure on new vehicle pricing. Vehicle affordability remains poor. As we know, typical car payment is up about 40% from pre-pandemic levels, with wages only being up about 20% over that same span. So we've seen a 20% gap there in what people can afford. We talked the other day, the average loan right now is running in at about 7.1%. The average loan being taken out is for a little bit over $40,000. So we can see that, We've also seen slowing growth in China with too much auto production capacity for its domestic market, which is a bad sign for long-term profitability. So there are definitely some challenges ahead in the share prices of GM, Ford, and Rivian based on this. So bring that up. Car business. On the positive level, after earnings reports, we talked about Progress Software, which was facing earnings yesterday, up about 6% in the pre-market hours here, making a nice little move up. And their earnings beat their EPS by almost 11%. So they came in at 1.26% per share, or $1.26 a share versus an estimate of $1.13. And then they beat revenue by about 1.44%, as we can see here. And they are getting a nice move up again. Obviously, in their name, they are a software company. One of the few that I would say is a positive here. Most of the ones we're going to talk about have been seeing the opposite. A big mover to the downside here is Stitch Fix, which is the apparel and retailer. They are getting drilled after a weak forecast. And you can see here they had a 42% miss on earnings. They were expected to have negative EPS of about 0.21. They actually lost about 30 cents a share. So, we're definitely seeing, that play out here to the downside. They also saw, the other one that was important is they saw their active clients be about 2.51 million, which is a decrease of 20%. So you can see why they're getting hit. Not only do the numbers not come in, but the people that are using the site are, going down tremendously also. So definitely one to keep an eye on. Ones that are going to hit earnings today. Oh, Cintas actually moving up here after announcing their earnings. So Cintas looks like they had a beat on earnings here this morning. They were expected to bring in an EPS, or earnings per share, of about $1 even. They came in at $1.10, and they were expecting revenues of $2.494 billion, and they actually hit 2.5. Okay, I'll come back to some of these in a minute. Let's see what we've got going on as we get into the market open here. We are going live. We're about 1 minute away. What are we going to see here? What's going to move? I do think that we might see a little bit of a rough day here. We're going to talk about it. Consumer confidence down. I thought, yesterday we saw the market sort of turn after, the consumer confidence came out. And I do think that sentiment matters, and I do think that we need to be cognizant of this. you know, and it really showed a little bit yesterday. We'll talk more once we get through this open here about that. Some of the ones we know. Here we go. We are live. What do we got? We have SPY opening up to the positive here. Okay, we're getting a little pump at open on the SPY. Not seeing as much on QQQ here. So SPY did get a little bit of a pump on the open. Let's see if we've got any big movers here so far. Like I said, the Chinese e-commerce names down. Alibaba down almost 3% here. Baidu down just over 3%. So they are getting hit here. SPY continuing to move up a little bit. Seeing QQQ bounce a little as we start here. Seeing some green across Berkshire, Constellation Energy, some Salesforce, CrowdStrike. Nice move up so far this morning by Delta Airlines. Didn't see any news there, but it is definitely moving up nicely here. So keep an eye on DAL. Definitely pumping up here. We'll say that Donald Trump's stock moving up a little bit here this morning after there was no reports of insider sales that would have had to been given to the SEC. So he did not sell. He kept his word there. Trying to see here. NVIDIA is up about 1.5% here. So we're seeing that morning pump out of NVIDIA that we saw a few weeks ago. I will say a lot of that got sold off afterwards. So it'll be interesting to see here. Not much in the news. It is trying to move here. So it's definitely trying to give us a little bit of a move. Yesterday's pump are now down 40%. That's why these are nail and bales. Like we talked about yesterday, it was BNZI. Let's take a look at the ones we're watching today. OCTO. It's trying, so, you know, we told you about that at about $4, so keep an eye on it. Trying to run here. Adding it to today's watch list here. Got it. And next is ATCH. Let's add that to it. And let's add MSGM. And lastly, let's add ATCH. So let's see what's going on with these pumpers now. MSGM moving the wrong way. Doesn't look like it wants to play. I would take that one off of the pumpers right there. Let's see what's going on with TNON. So far the pumpers are not pumping this morning. KBH down 6%. GM down 4 now. Ford almost down 4. So those downgrades definitely hitting as we're watching here. We have seen everything go positive. QQQ, SPY, and RWI all moving up here. NVIDIA up about 4% here. Excuse me, 2%. So NVIDIA driving us up. Let's see what else seems to be moving the markets here. Nvidia continuing to push up here, so Nvidia definitely seeing some love so far this morning. Intel up about 0.75, so semi is moving in the right direction. ITT seeing Neo, another Chinese stock, get hit here. Take a look at the perfect. See if we got any big names moving here. On trying to make a move back up. Okay, let's get back into the news here. And we are seeing QQQ pump up here, so we're trying to get some movement to the upside here. QQQ starting to get a little bit of a run going. SPY's more not bottoming out, but hitting its resistance level here at 571.75 or so. So we're seeing that. Bitcoin holding above 63,500. Gold holding at 26.65 or so. Silver struggling to get back above 32. So a nice move up here by Brent, up to 73.73. WTI at about 72. VIX flat on the day so far, so not much going on the VIX. 1533, kind of low. Talked about this yesterday, that once it starts getting into that 1450, 1470 area, could be an opportunity to buy some volatility protection here as we move into the October month. Seeing iPower, seeing a little love out of iPower here. SMMT, another pumper we like to keep an eye on. Up 2%, could be one that looks to make a move here. So we're seeing the chips in general making moves. SMCI up about 2%. Nvidia trying to get up 2%. AMD up 1.5. Snowflake up 1.5. So we're seeing tech carry the day so far. Intel now up over a point. Snapchat, the one that we've been talking about with our boys over from Bullish Bears, Jeremy Vreeland and then Matthew Tuttle, seeing if that could fill its gap. That's trying to make a move up here today. Had made a move up to 1079, so a little bit of a retrace since. Oracle. So we do see some moving up. Do keep in mind some that we're going to keep an eye on here that are going into earnings today. Micron, one that you know I'm a big fan of, MU. They're looking to get, I think their earnings 1.112 is the estimates on their EPS, and about $7.65 billion in revenue. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. I did see an article on Micron I wanted to touch on. And it was talking about that, you know, Micron has really had a lot of its business coming from personal computers and smartphone chips. And those are really mature companies. that in mature markets. So it's going to be tough to pick up a lot of growth there the same way. You might see single digit growth with that. You're not going to see the explosion that Nvidia is looking for from AI and such. And that there's also an inventory buildup along with the weaker sales of PCs and smartphones that could weigh on Micron. So if we do get a pullback here after earnings, could be one that I definitely look at here. We know that we talked about Micron when it comes to analyst expectations. They were, expected to, they had the highest. They had about a 94% of analysts with a buy on them, and the average price was about 94% above where it is now on a 12-month look. So, definitely really strong there. Let's take a look. I got a text from my boy Charlie, IREN running here. IREN. Let's keep an eye. One that looks, and you can see what it's doing here. That's a pretty good setup. Again, that can break the 932. You can see a good run to 1059. Yeah, if that can break through, you've got some good opportunity. So that's a good one. So yeah, so Micron, we got to keep an eye on that, be aware of it. But again, Wall Street sees Micron's current predicament as temporary. 90% of analysts rate the stock as a buy. And like we said in a note that I saw from UBS, Tim Arcuri said he was steadfast that the slowdown in DRAM price increases is temporary as PC smartphone customers come back to the table next year, given the step up in memory content needed to use these edgier AI applications. So, and then Susquehanna wrote that memory is currently in a mid-cycle correction in the middle of a longer upcycle. That's where my view is on it. One thing to keep in mind is Micron projects only 1 quarter out in its report, so this week's release might not turn its tide. So we'll keep an eye on that, but it's one that I think in the next 3 to 6 months you want to be keeping an eye on. Another company, Concentrix, which is a tech service software builder. They have earnings report today. Another one, they are looking for $2.92 a share EPS and looking for about $2.384 billion in revenue. We also lastly have Jeffries will be reporting today. They are down about 0.19 here as we open up another one looking at earnings, and they're looking for about 78 cents a share on EPS and 1.7 billion on revenue. So we will be keeping a close eye on them today. Seeing Tesla down a little bit so far. SPY's gone negative here a little bit, so seeing a little weakness. Nasdaq's now gone negative. Seeing most of them have gone negative here. Gold is losing a little bit, so we're seeing money come out of the market, a little bit of profit taking across the board. Bitcoin back below 63,500. And we're even seeing oil, Brent, get hit, seeing cocoa down, so some of the commodities. Copper is up about 0.5%, so copper futures are doing pretty well. Some of these that were up, you can see Intel had been up to 23.07, now struggling to stay above the 23 mark. So we are definitely hitting a little bit of resistance here. Seeing more of a pullback continue here on the Chinese names NEO near the low of the day. Same with Baba. Baidu's pumped up a little bit more, so definitely seeing a little bit weakness come across in general today. In other news, we did see Worthington had gotten hit yesterday, is moving up nicely here this morning. They had a miss on their earnings, and a pretty big miss. So interesting that Worthington is seeing a little bit of a move up here. Quite honestly, it had been dropping down and slipping on its weaker than expected first quarter results. So Worthington getting a little bit of a move up here. That's a little surprising. Hewlett Packard, some analyst reports came out today. Hewlett Packard moving up here in the pre-hours. Barclays raised its price target from 20 to 24 and upgraded it to equal weight. So we're seeing a little bit of a move by Hewlett Packard. In other news, Bed Bath Beyond, or Bath and Body Works, excuse me. I keep getting those two companies confused. Bath and Body Works is going to be replaced in the S&P 500, so it's coming out. What I thought was really interesting is on the other side of that, what's going to come in to replace it is a company called Amentum, which actually isn't a public company yet. It is part of this Jacobs Solution is selling off their cyber intelligence and critical mission solution business and merging it with a private company, Amentum. And the new company that will be getting listed by the end of the month is going to make it immediately into the S&P 500. So I thought that was interesting. Not something you normally see. MSGM trying to make that move. Same with Octo. Keep an eye on it. IREN here. Let's see what it does. No, it's going the opposite way. Okay. Apple down about 3/4 of a point here. You know, and what I was talking about, part of the reason we might be seeing some of this drop here, some of this pullback across markets, is that, you know, yesterday we heard from, although QQQ moving back up here. So we're trying, let's see where the tick's at here. Right now we're at a negative 363, negative 376. So the tick is pretty negative here. And moving more to the negative side. So definitely a little bit of weakness here. Minus 313. So yeah, we can see minus 402. So we're seeing some weakness fly in here. Okay. Seen a nice move back up here. So after we hit about 945, we've seen a little bit move to the north side. So after taking some money for the first 15 minutes, we are seeing it. FAAS, seeing a stop there. FAAS, let's see, coming out of a halt here. What do we got going on there? Ooh, that had made quite a move. So our halt there this morning. The NZI, is that trying to make another move here today? That just halted to the upside also. It's trying to bounce. VTNR, one of the big losers so far. Down about 63%. Woo. General seeing energy stocks outside of CG getting hit a little bit here this morning. Okay. TH. Target Hospitality down about 20% here this morning. After announcing that the provider of modular housing said it disbanded its special committee created to review a buyout offer after the bidder failed to follow through on its offer. So the Woodlands Texas company formed a committee in June after receiving an unsolicited bid from Arrow Holdings, a unit of TDR Capital, to buy its shares that it didn't already own for $1.80 or excuse me, $10.80 a share. You can see that stock's now dropped to $7.57 here. Following the announcement, the company launched a formal process to solicit bids, and they did invite Arrow to participate. However, following the news of the loss of the contract, no offers were received, and Arrow neither reaffirmed its offer nor offered an alternative plan. So they're definitely facing some issues there. One of the bigger losers on the street so far this morning. Staying positive on QQQ. Tick on positive here. Tick has gone positive, so that's what we want to see. Oh, I say that, it went back negative. It had gone positive. Seeing that Southwest Airlines did have a little news there. Elliott Investment Management, which we know has, taken a big stand in there and is attempting, to force changes throughout the company. What they're planning to do is reduce service to and from Atlanta next year, cutting more than 300 pilots and flight attendant positions, according to a company memo seen by CNBC. The changes come a day before Southwest's Investor Day. when investors will map out the company's plans to cut costs and grow revenue as pressure mounts from the activist Elliott Investment Management. Southwest told staff it isn't closing its crew base in Atlanta. Instead, it will reduce staffing by as many as 200 flight attendants and as many as 140 pilots for the April 2025 bid month. Southwest isn't laying off crews, but they likely have to bid for work from other cities. And they will reduce their presence from 11 to 11 gates from 18. So they're definitely looking to cut out of Atlanta. Says, although we try everything we can before making difficult decisions like this one, we can simply not afford to continue losses and must make this change to help restore our profitability. So definitely one to keep an eye on there. With that being said, we had seen DAL move up nicely on that news, and maybe that they'll pick up some business there. Okay, well, we're coming down to the end of our first hour here today. Like I said, we have quite a day ready to go. I will be back at 12 o'clock with Agnieszka Woods from A Head Coaching. She gets people, traders, minds in the right place so they're ready to trade. We'll have a mid-market report. Then at 1 p.m., like we talked about, so happy to have Scott Bauer from Prosper Trading Academy and his show directly from the floor of the CBOE. And then Crypto Corner with me at 2 o'clock today, a look at Bitcoin and others in the crypto market. We'll discuss Caroline Ellison, who was sentenced yesterday to 2 years in prison. What does that mean? We'll take a look there. We'll also talk a little bit about what's going on in the world of Bitcoin second layer solutions. Saw some interesting stuff there. That's our day today. As we head into our break here, what we see is QQQ continuing to move up here over the last 45 minutes pretty well here, especially since about 2:43, last 15 minutes. So after seeing that quick profit taking here at the 9:30 sort of hit, we are seeing QQQ move up. SPY pretty level on the day. The two small caps, the RUI and the RUT, are fairly flat in general. We do see Bitcoin moving up a little bit here, trying to make a move. Could be good for MSTR. I had that on one of these. This one. No. I don't know. There it is. MSTR moving up on that news. MSTR's got some move to run. Okay, so for Howard Greenberg, I want to thank you so much for joining me, and I will see everybody back here at 12 o'clock.